Welcome back to How We Change the World. Today I'm so excited to welcome back to the show for the second time a dear friend, Michael Kline. Michael's insights have profoundly impacted me on my own personal development journey. Michael's dedicated to helping individuals uncover their inherent worth. He's known simply as the Enoughness guy. Recently, Michael delivered a very powerful TED Talk, profound even, titled Why You Never Feel Good Enough, which has already started to resonate with audiences worldwide, including many in my own network. His unique perspective on never feeling like we're enough really challenges us to rethink our self-worth beyond the traditional accolades and achievements and what we own and how we look. Now, Michael's work focuses on helping people remove those emotional blocks, allowing them to fully embrace their own sense of enoughness. His wisdom and perspective have changed so many people that I know, including myself, and I have no doubt that our conversation will offer valuable insights for all of you. So let's jump in and explore the depth of Michael Kline's wisdom about uncovering our own sense of enoughness. Good morning, Michael. It is so good to see you again.
Oh, good morning, Deborah. So glad to be here. So good to be seen.
Isn't it?
Finally, after 60 years.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And this is
that's right. That's kind of the theme of the whole podcast today. This is your second visit. I think you're the only person I've rerun some, but I think you're the only person I've had on as a guest twice. So
really?
I'm in my second year. Yeah, so you get a little ribbon for already, that.
But now I feel extra flattered.
Good. Well, I mean, and it's because you've been doing a lot of cool things and you're discovering a lot of life-changing things, and the lessons are just coming fast and furious. And so, let's grab them while they're fresh and fresh in your mind and fresh in my mind, and they can help people. And that's really like kind of what we're here to do: help people be the best they can be and change the world in the process. And that's what you're doing. That's what you're doing every day. And this is usually the part of the show where I tend to, well, obviously right at the beginning, I always introduce people and I kind of give a quick bio of their life and stuff. But then I was looking at your website and you're like, I don't do bios anymore. And that you kind of think, there are a bit of people showing off or trying to be, not showing off really, but trying to be enough by showing all the things they've done and all their degrees and their whatnots and wherefores and all that. And so instead, we're just going to introduce you as the Enoughness guy, because that's
enough.
That's there you go. It's working already. And that is your moniker. You are going by the Enoughness guy, which I love because it's the whole theme of what we're going to talk about. It's kind of the theme of your teaching. You're helping people through different types of development and self-discovery, and discovering that really it all came down to, are we enough? We all want to know and are always worried that we're not enough, right? Mm-hmm. Something like
Seems
that
way. that's been my experience. Yeah. When we think about the things that we have been taught that will make us enough or make us feel enough are the things that often go into a bio.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing wrong with a bio.
Yeah.
Right. I don't dislike people for having bios.
No, it gives us context. Yeah.
And people still ask me for a bio and 50 words, 100 words, 150 words, whatever they want. I'm going to sum myself up in how many words. But the bio is data. And the data to us feels like us, because I've been partnering with my friend John Dewey on this Path to Enoughness project. He was a good friend that hiked with my brother and I on the El Camino de Costa Rica a couple of weeks ago. And so this is part of his work around data. We talked about this quite a bit. That what we observed in real time with this group of people was how easy it is for people to go into data, and the data we watched it over and over again, building separation between people rather than building connection. We become less about ourselves and more about why we're good enough to be in the conversation. Why don't you just be in the conversation? And it's just a pattern. We noticed it day after day after day, as like several times a day would say, oh, that's a data thing again, isn't it? That's what we're watching here.
Yeah.
So when we started thinking about data versus feelings, and we think about talk about our thinking mind and our feeling mind, are very different. So there's this data can get in the way. So nothing against, people should have qualifications, and it's nice to put everyone in a neat little box so we know how to think of them. But most of us, I don't know very many people who actually live according to their bio or their little boxes anyway. So thanks for humoring me on that.
That's a second point. That's a second point that we put up it's sort of a, I don't know. I want to say some kind of protection. I'm not coming up with the exact word I want, but here, put this in front of me. I'll stand back here and please just look at this image of me. I would like you to see. So, but you do, though, talk about what your mission is and that you are on a mission to help the world uncover their enoughness. It's a pretty big mission considering most of the world doesn't feel like enough. Most people, not all.
Yeah. If I were a beauty queen, I'd say I want to bring world peace. I think here's the thing about enoughness. I think we could have world peace in a generation if people felt enough, if they were aware of how enough they are. When you think about the powers of the world right now, or throughout history, a lot of powerful men who don't really feel that they're enough, trying to prove they are.
Yeah.
That's what's running our world right now, or most of the things that are wrong with our world. I'm talking whether you're talking about, regardless of your politics, we could be talking about commerce, universities, industry, healthcare, or world politics.
Yeah.
I think we could have world peace if people knew there were enough.
Well, let's back up a little bit and explain what that means. And is that because they're starting? You have this quote that I've seen about bullies that you talk about. I don't know. Do people become bullies because they don't feel like they're enough? Is that kind of the conclusion that you've come to?
I think there's it's complex, of course, like everything.
Right.
And I think there's also some simple truths in that. Right.
Yeah.
I think about my own history with bullying. I always think of myself more as having been the bullied as a kid. Have I been a bully? Yes. Do we all have the capacity to be both? Yes. Will I bully someone again in the future? Probably.
Yeah.
I've made every other mistake I've ever made. I've repeated it. So I don't have the illusion that I'm going to give up, mistake making. Having awareness around what we have the capacity to do and the ability to recognize our mistakes when they show up as close to real time as possible anyway, and to make adjustments so that we don't have to judge ourselves so harshly and beat ourselves up for making those mistakes. But I think that, I can find compassion for people who have bullied me. And I think about my playground bullies.
Did you
many
have
of
those?
them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I think many of them I found compassion for a long time ago.
Okay.
And as we moved into adulthood, I recognized kind of what some of their pain was.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And we see the bullied becoming the bullies so often. Right. Yeah. And so maybe the bully that's, wanted to beat me up in the playground got beat up by their parent that morning at home.
Right.
We don't know.
We don't know
their stories.
Yeah.
But they certainly grow up. I mean, I think about, I just think about so many adults today, and and people in the limelight and famous people, we know their family histories, their childhood histories.
We find out later,
Yeah, they don't have to become bullies.
Right.
That's not required of them. They can move through that. And yet we see that. Yeah.
And that's huge. And I mean, can you repeat what you've said about bullies, the bullies of the playground? Because I think it's a really powerful sentence. I don't know if you remember how you've worded that.
Yeah, in the talks, I was referring to really parents. I think I was referring to my own experience with my adopted parents who were emotionally abusive and emotional bullies, but they didn't feel that they were enough. I know that now.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So they passed that on to another generation.
Yeah.
And my point was that lots of parents today are passing on this lack of enoughness to their children. And some of those children become bullies on the playground. Some of them grow up to be bullies on the adult playgrounds. I think I named of universities and corporations and entire countries, and everywhere in between.
Yeah.
That they show up. So, the expression "hurt people hurt people."
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which also means that healed people heal people. And we all have the
power. You never hear that corollary. That's really helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. So if hurt people hurt people, and healed people can heal people, and all of us hurt people have the power to, as hurt people, we have the power to heal ourselves. So we have a responsibility to find the healing, so that we become the healed people that can heal people.
So do you think, I think you've mentioned, or maybe I imagine this, that, you look back at people like Hitler, or even you can look at, not everyone likes to think about Trump this way, but there is a lot of reference to his, not feeling enough when he was a child. His father never felt like enough. And then now you see the reaction to that. So we're talking, whether it's 100% accurate or not, or there's other factors, it does seem to be the case. And when you think about those implications of what that can be, look at what's happening in Ukraine right now, and what's happening in the United States now and to come, and all around the world. You see bullies all over the world. It could not be more important. This is not like let's all feel better about ourselves kind of a thing. This is like life at every level.
We can take this from its simplest thing, from helping your teenager who's struggling right now with something, to the world political stage, to everything that's going on and not going on in Wall Street, the things that are going on with world poverty, the things that's going on in our healthcare system, everywhere else. It still shows up. The bullies in our office, in the corporate offices, the bullies in our school board, the bullies in our, I live in Florida. So
you're not exactly the poster child, but that's all right.
Right. Well, it's, we are here. And so in our education system, it's like there are people who really are passionate about supporting the youth, and about supporting and bringing quality education and all of that. And they've been at it for decades, and they work in a system that just gets hijacked by a new political movement, by a governor who doesn't feel like he's enough. I'll go out on a limb here. I don't want to argue politics with anybody, but it's pretty simple to see. Anyone that's ever been in junior high or high school knows what a bully looks like. Yeah. And when they show up in your living room TV, you know what they look like. So we don't have to agree or disagree on any of their politics or whatever. A bully's a bully's a bully. When they're wearing a capital B on their shirt to brag about it, you kind of can spot it. So that's just what's true. Right? Yeah. So it's important. It's critical. And it could also, when we go back to inward, because it's not about, I'm not going to fix our governor. Right? He could fix himself if he wants to. Yeah. When I go look into my dirty little ugly 8x10 gold plastic framed mirror in my basement of basements. True story. That's how it showed up in a dream at the beginning of my trek.
Oh, okay. I'm like, what is he talking about?
We have to go look inward, and we look inside, or go look in the mirror. I get this scary little mirror. And it was embarrassingly dirty, this mirror. So I look in this little mirror. So I have to go in there, right? We can only do our own work, right? And see what we can do, because it's not going to be out there. And even when we do our deepest work, what is enoughness? And like at a spiritual level, I feel like there's no such thing as not being enough, except for being human. It's like when we can really become, maybe when we become fully evolved, maybe spiritually evolved self. Is finally we're finally one with all that is. We're enough. Yeah. I mean, we're already enough because we are already one with all that is, in my view. Anyway, but so we're not enough. We are one with all. It's our being human creates this illusion that we're separate, and the illusion that we're separate creates the illusion that we're not enough. So we can remember that we are not separate, and we are not enough. Yeah. Of course we're enough. I just don't know as humans that we ever fully achieve the capacity of always feeling enough. because we can't be enough until we always know that we're one.
That's a huge point. And I don't think you have to be fully transcended to recognize the fact that we are all one, especially as we become more interconnected and we understand that we are one with everything and every other person and plant and every other thing. I am not a fully transcended person, but I can feel like enough when I understand that I am fully connected to you and every person listening to this. And it does make you feel like enough, because not that you finally got filled up, but it doesn't, that's not the point. That's not even a point. Right. That's not even a thing. That's a very human problem, and it's not a transcendent problem. Yeah. But Michael, we've gotten pretty far into this without talking about what just occurred for you, which was that you your TED Talk just came out. The title of which is, what is it? Is there a title on a TED Talk? I don't even know.
There is. It's I should
look
know
that
it.
Up. Well, anyway, it's something about you and enoughness.
why you never feel good enough, I think, is what we landed on. Yes.
Yeah. It's about enoughness. That's right. Enough to know. And I was just telling you before we came on, and maybe earlier, that it just came out. has it been just a week or so that it's been out?
I think today's day 5.
Oh, is that all? Because I'm surprised, actually, because I feel like it's been out longer, because I've already shared it with some family members and a couple friends, and have the feedback I've gotten. It's not like the normal TED Talk feedback, not that I do that, get involved in that a lot, but I've seen a million TED Talks. I like a lot of them. Some of them are boring. I'm changed by this, and that it's the first one I've ever gone back and watched maybe 3-4 times. It went fast. Wow. And sometimes when you know the person and they're doing something, you're not able to hear the message quite as well. But that did not happen in this case. I was, and as I might have alluded to, that obviously this is an issue for me personally, or I wouldn't be so drawn in by this, because the truth of it and the wisdom of it was very, very, very powerful. And I'm going to watch it again and share it everywhere. And that's one of the great things of having you on today, is to just, let people get to know who you are a little bit more, and where it all came from, and sort of the genesis. Because I think you told me just personally, when we were talking about a month or two ago, that this was sort of the culmination of your experience of life, kind of drilled down into just 18, is it 18 minutes, something like that?
13.
Oh, 13. They used to be 18, minutes. I thought. Yeah.
Well, that's it's a complicated rumor about how long a TED Talk or how short it's supposed to be. I've had friends that were required to get it down to 10. We were asked to get it to 13.
I didn't know that.
They're independently organized events, so it depends on the organizer, I think.
Okay, yeah.
But I got it to 13, and it says 13 and 11 seconds. I was a little concerned, but only because I worked so hard to get it nailed at 13.
Oh, they let you keep they gave you some wiggle room?
Well, they don't care. One of the people that were in my class that were presented at USF on the same night went to 16. They don't drag you off the stage. Nothing bad happens. But it was such a goal. I was stuck on that. I'm going to get this in 13 minutes. And I cut out so many important things I didn't want to cut out to get it to 13. And I said, how did I get to, and it was like just a few seconds under. Then they added the intro music and the applause at the end. It's like, dang it went to 13 and 11 seconds.
And then somebody else does 16 anyway. Right. And you're like, so many more things.
Well, it's so funny. It's like, I don't need to be, it's funny because I've gotten so good at letting go of comparing, which is a big crime we commit to ourselves when we compare ourselves to others, that ties into enoughness. Right. So it isn't about any of that. It's really just good, clean fun, because when you're working so hard on something. Yeah. And I'm not a perfectionist by any stretch. It's like, I'm a good enoughist, Yeah. Huh. Get close enough.
I wouldn't have guessed that. Yeah.
And I love excellence in things that really matter. But I want to get to the gist of what's really matters here.
Right.
And it so often is not what they told me that mattered. Right. So, like in school, when they said, I love the expression, when I was a kid, I got this feedback or report card, comments, letters home about like he could do anything if he would only apply himself. Oh,
does not live up to expectations.
Give me something useful to do.
Yeah.
Give me something important. It's like algebra is not it.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, anyone could be have great potential. But what they meant was he could have great potential to do what we want him to do if he would apply himself to the things which we want him to apply himself.
Correct.
And I'm not falling for it.
Yeah.
But when we decide something's important, it's time to do this. It's like doing the trek, doing the El Camino in Costa Rica. It was like, no, this is a 12 million inches from coast to coast, and I'm going to do every one of them. Right? It made a commitment, and it felt important when we labeled it the path to enoughness and made it a metaphor for this journey. It became more important rather than a hike.
Let's jump into that, because as long as you brought it up, and we can pepper in some lessons from your TED Talk, as we're going. But I know that you just got back from this journey a week ago or something, 2 weeks. I don't know. Very recently.
Yeah, it's been 2 weeks. Mm-hmm.
Long enough to let it sort of percolate and take some form in your mind about what you experienced. So this is you called this trip your path to enoughness. I'm going to let you describe the whole thing, because I was honestly following along on Facebook. You kind of formed a group around that, and people, you had some tools that let people follow you along. And so, but I'd rather hear the whole thing described by you, because it was really powerful and interesting.
Well, we should put a link somewhere, however you magically do that in podcast land, to join the group. It's a public group, and we're going to continue it and make it a thing. But in there, when you join the group, there's all our live check-ins, and our videos that we were posting along the way are all in there, so people can go get the real thing. They can see me, see John and I crying and blubbering along the way in real time. And, I think we'll come up with, I don't know how many. We recorded probably 15 hours of content last weekend after getting home to create maybe a masterclass from all of this. And so maybe it's 10 big lessons, or 7 or 12 or something. Who knows? A few that come to mind, though.
Well, wait, before you go into it, can you back up and kind of describe what this whole thing was? Like, people don't know at all what we're talking about. So you went on this journey.
The new El Camino de Costa Rica is a 107. It's relatively new. Only about 500 people have completed it. They built it just pre-COVID. It's still being changed and navigated.
And the path is called
El Camino de Costa Rica.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it starts on the Caribbean coast and ends in Capos on the Pacific Ocean. Yeah. It goes through I used to know the data, and I think I might have the data wrong, and I don't know how to get it right. There's so many different pieces of data about 17,000 feet of vertical gain and drop? That's a lot of damn mountains in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a lot of
all that really matters.
All around. And there's days of walking through coffee plantations and cloud forests. And we slept in, family homes. Like, I slept in somebody's guest bed. I don't know that it was a guest bedroom. I think one night, it was someone's bedroom. Yeah. That they don't use when they have guests stay. It's like next door to a little place that has a little restaurant and family members.
Money. Yeah.
It was that's the goal of it. The goal of it is to support little communities and entrepreneurs along the way who wouldn't otherwise have any sort of tourism business, especially there's an indigenous community, a little village. Mm-hmm. I think that one has a population of about 100 people, completely inaccessible by any mode of transportation, bicycle, or you couldn't get there with a motorcycle, nothing. It's, you hike for an hour or so, you cross a river in this giant basket on a pulley system. You get across. Oh,
you did that? Really wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then it's an hour and a half hike.
And I have trouble with that one.
Narrow, single path, muddy and rocky path going up the sides of mountains and through deep jungle, and finally getting to this little village at the top. It's totally inaccessible and absolutely amazing.
Well, how does this? I'm having a little trouble relating to how it feeds into enoughness, because before you went on the journey, what was your purpose for it? Did it have to do with your enoughness?
My 60th birthday was around the corner. And I saw this retreat at Blue Spirit, which is about only a half hour from our retreat center in Costa Rica. And so we're very familiar with it. And they were doing this Wisdom Wellness Week starring Bessel van der Kolk, who you mentioned earlier when you were talking.
Yeah.
A trauma expert and other experts. I thought, this would be fun. An excuse to go to hang out at Blue Spirit for a week. And I was going to be co-hosting a retreat nearby the week before. So it's so close. Let's go. We'll stay
Yeah.
another week and go to that. And of course,
Yeah.
my friends say, yeah, we should. So we did. Yeah. So that was while preparing and I said, I found the opportunity to do a TEDx talk. I said, got to do that. And so I think, so this is my 60th birthday present is the whole year. I'm just saying yes to everything that feels like it would give me joy. So doing more retreats, doing the walk, doing the TED talk, all of that. And so getting to meet Bessel and talk with him about our sense of enoughness while preparing for my TEDx talk. And so I got to ask him about enoughness. And this might go to our definition of it and why we even call it that. Because we talked about labels and data and bios. Well, what's the enoughness guy? And it's not a real word. Well, it is now. And autocorrect now in my phone knows it as a word.
So that's all I need. It's official.
But I asked Bessel about that. I specifically said, I'd love to get your take on the collective impact of small T trauma on our sense of enoughness. He says he's a ultimate scientist. So he said, well, first of all,
can I just say, he's also the author of The Body Keeps the Score, which is very well known. Yeah.
World's foremost expert on trauma and the brain for decades. Yeah. And he says, as this researcher, scientist guy that he is, he says, well, first of all, he says, explain to me this word enoughness. So I know what we're talking about. And I thought, oh crap, I didn't see that coming. Yeah. So I thought, well, if we call it self-confidence, self-worth, self-esteem, anything around that, we all have our own definitions of that. We would apply our thinking and how we feel about ourselves in the context of how we see those words meaning something. Like we might say, oh, I don't have a self-confidence problem, or I don't have low self-esteem. It's just that when such and such happens, I feel, right? And so to get rid of all of the baggage of predefined words and to open up the possibility of having it meaning much more to whoever's listening and joining the conversation, I wanted to use a different word that forms, to create a new noun off of the adjective of feeling enough in general. And he says, I like this. I wish I could do his accent. He says, I like this. He says, I might steal that term. I said, I'd be flattered.
That's lovely. Yeah. Because it is a great term just to throw it in there. It's fun and it feels accessible and it feels like that's something I won't reject out of hand.
Yeah, exactly. We'll reject it later when we go back to our denial. Hopefully not.
Well, we're used to rejecting low self-esteem. Yeah.
And then, if anyone that I won't steal the show from I won't do a spoiler on the talk. Then we share what he had to say about small T trauma, and his answer is in the talk. But so that's so all of this stuff. So we anywhere we can go play joyfully. And we learn things like taking life one inch by inch, taking the project of feeling enough inch by inch. You don't have to feel enough today. You can know intellectually that you're enough, and you may or may not believe that. And we just start where we are in our journey. Yeah. And we move at the pace we move, and you're enough no matter how quickly you move on your journey to whatever you're working on. It's okay.
Well, so how did your when you decided to take this walk in which you learned some lessons about enoughness? So you were just taking it more to say, let's have fun. This is something of joy.
Oh yeah, fine.
Okay. But then you're like, no, I'm going to go do it, and then you learned some valuable lessons about enoughness on that trip.
Well, yeah, there was something else in there. There was something about my judging myself for not completing things. And so before I decided this was about tying it into the enoughness thing, because back in December when we booked it, we hadn't named the talk yet, hadn't even started writing it until mid-January. So, because the talk was at the end of March. And so I recognized, because then when my husband asked me, why are you doing this? This is insane. Because he's smart enough to just say no to me when I come up with stupid ideas.
Well, you got to have someone in your life like that. So why not your husband?
Yes. Yeah. And why are you doing this? And I said, honestly, I feel like I have to complete it. And I have to complete the whole thing because we had other friends that would join if we did the 8-day version where they drive you from this point to that point and you could just do the beautiful parts. And I said, I don't want to do just the beautiful parts. I've been trying to do that my whole life. that is a metaphor for the crap I skip, the things I don't finish, and then I judge myself for not finishing them. And sometimes I'm grateful and it's smart to take the shorter route somewhere that gets you where you're going. And sometimes it's not. And I generally had a feeling, I think what was bubbling up for me was the harsh self-criticism around the things just as general sense that I don't finish the things, so many things that I say I'm going to do or that I want to get done and I don't. So
it's a common thing. Yes.
Yeah.
Common
I said,
feeling.
I need to do the whole thing. So I said, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So off we went. And then it just kept morphing from there.
Yeah.
And so then when we get into it, I didn't know I was going to learn lessons. I thought I would use it as a work with metaphors that we discover along the way. I get to share from my vast wisdom of the metaphor I've noticed today that I want to give you a lesson about is. And of course I had to first learn the damn lesson that very morning in real time for myself and then share it.
And then put it on Facebook. Yeah.
Because the first night there, when we started the hike, that first night I had this nightmare sort of thing, experience. I had a dream that did take me through the journey went through business. It went through a scene with a president of a prestigious university. It went through a scene of a religious figure, and we became a kind of disaster that we came upon in the dream. And somebody from healthcare, and between the religion, the healthcare, business, education system, none of these systems could help. And then there was this grotesque scene with all this horrible suffering going on in this disaster scene that nothing could help. And then the follow up to that is I was led down this little set of stairs, like a half a flight beneath the basement, a little dark doorway at the bottom of some stairs. And inside it was just this little dirty mirror, this little leaky with the little plastic gold frame. And it was just hard to look at. But it's all that was there to look at.
This was an actual dream, like a sleeping dream you had?
Yes.
That's actual unbelievable.
Sleeping on the first night. And you remember my brother, John and Matt and I were talking on the walk the day before that dream or the day of that dream about the elevator, using the elevator as a metaphor for our awareness. It's all, it was in one of the live check-ins in the Facebook group.
I'm going to miss that one.
And so then that night I had this dream where I'm going beneath the basement. The elevator doesn't go down that way. So we had to go down like 5 extra steps beneath the bottom floor. I find this little dirty mirror. Oh, crap. This is going to be a tough hike.
This is amazing. This is absolutely amazing. I mean, it is so literal. I've never seen such a literal dream of mining your, subconscious, your unconscious. Yeah. And that you can remember it in such detail. It was like, okay, so here's what we're here to do. I had to
get up and process that one right away because it was just too much. I was kind of afraid to go back to sleep.
Yeah, I bet.
But it felt like that same feeling in going into, ayahuasca journey or something else. Like, okay, I'm going to drink another cup. We're going to see where this is going to go. It's like, embrace, buckle up.
Yeah.
It had that kind of buckle up warning feeling to the dream. And then I get out there on the hike and it's like, what am I going to learn today? And I learned first, the lesson that I learned every day over and over again was I was learning what Pura Vida means. Or Pura, Pura, Vida.
Right, yeah.
So I'd like to pretend I practicing rolling my
You did
R's
it so well that when you first said it, I didn't. Yeah.
So it literally means pure life. And if you look at the promotional websites, people talking about Costa Rica, they will say, they'll compare it to like aloha. It's a greeting. People do say it on the side of the street, just walking and going through little towns. People say, Pura Vida. I'll just say it, coming and going. I've heard it over the last few years, most commonly as almost a sign of frustration or letting go of, accepting what is. Like when the power goes out again, you just say, Pura Vida.
So it's used a lot of different ways. Yeah.
It's used a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
And in actually living it rather than talking about it, it goes back to like the data thing. We're out here in nature and some of the hikers have satellite fed, Garmin whatever's on their watches and in their phones and whatever, tracking every step we take.
Yeah.
And they know exactly where we are, how far we've been, all of that. None of the two of them, there were several of them, and none of them could agree. We couldn't get two people to agree but they all knew their data was right because they have the data.
That sounds like data, real life.
Yes, we tend to think that we're right if we have information. We must be right. It can't be wrong. Right. And you watch them argue, no, it says right here. It's like, and the other one is, no, it says right here. So they all have the data wrong. And the guide, who's the only person in the area in our group that actually knows where we are, but doesn't know where we are, in reference to your satellite gizmo. But he knows where we are in reference to where we're going. And it's like, well, how far are we going to our, campsite tonight? It's like the whole way, all the way. It's like,
which is the right answer, right? Like, of course, that's how far we're going until we get there. Like, we have made life so complex, and how much of that is enoughness, right? I mean, everyone has their little gadgets. I do. When you said that, I'm thinking, my sister and I go to this park and walk and run and we're always at the end. Okay, well, wait, mine says this and mine says that. We do it all the time. Who cares? We went as far as we went, right. And it's this, when you start looking, because I'm thinking when you started on this walk, maybe you didn't do it initially about enoughness consciously, but unconsciously you did. Then do you start seeing it everywhere, that everyone, you see it in yourself everywhere, and almost it could become oppressive, I think, if you get stuck there, because it's life. It is everyday life that everyone, but taste this, but my food is better. Taste this bite of mine. I ordered the better thing, or I made the, It's pretty, because at first we were talking about bullies, and I'm thinking, okay, that can lead to, Hitler taking over Europe, or Russia taking over Ukraine, or whatever it is. Russia, you see it again and again throughout their entire history has been this, but that's another, I digress. I'm just thinking, how does it show up for all of us that are listening, or that for you and for me? We're not heads of state, but we're all grappling with this, and it really impedes us. And, we've talked before that because you do this work to help people unstick their emotions. So maybe we can, if we can pivot to that for just a minute, about how, why this is important in terms of our own healing, your everyday person healing, and how we do that. Like, how do we feel enough?
Because it is for the everyday person. Again, we're back to that dirty little mirror in the basement subroom.
Right.
We're not.
We've all got them hidden somewhere in the house.
We all got them.
Psyche.
That's all we can really do. So we're not. It's not my job to, go fix Russia, Putin, but I can go look in the mirror and see what I've got there.
Right. A lot of the work you've been doing over the last 10 years is helping people see those things that have been that have stuck in them from the trauma that we talked about earlier. Whether there's an event which I'm not going to give away all the lines and the stories from the podcast, from the TED Talk, but one of the lessons that you talked about in there was about you were talking about your own life and how you'd had this major trauma happen when you were a child, very young, 7 years old. Give that away. And anyone from the outside could look and see that was a major trauma, but then there were other traumas that happened along the same period of time, which have actually turned out to be more significant, and in making you feel not enough, other things that nobody from the outside would think were much, if anything. But those are the crippling ones, and that your work has been, even before you became the enoughness guy, which is such a great way to phrase it all and put it together, is that you've been helping people feel enough. You just didn't call it that before. Right.
Well, and it doesn't have to be, whatever someone identifies their feeling is what it is, because I'm not in the business of diagnosing or prescribing anything.
Yeah.
So if it's anything from general malaise to indecision to procrastination to, physical health issues or working with complex PTSD. The the person in front of me. And it's like, none of those labels are really helpful. It's more data, right? The diagnosis isn't really helpful. What's there is old stuck emotions.
Yeah.
Right. Old stuck emotions are directing our current decisions, behaviors, and beliefs. So how do we
Can you say that again more slowly?
Old stuck emotions are directing our current decisions, behaviors, and beliefs.
Yeah.
And most of us don't want to admit that.
Or know about it.
You don't have to admit it for it to be true.
We don't know about it, though, right? I mean, you can't admit something you don't know. You didn't always know about these things that happened when you were a kid. Yeah.
Yeah. And so all our past is influencing us constantly, moment to moment. And so most of the time, let's say we're fully functioning humans, we have our jobs and we have our lives and our families, and things are moving along well enough, then it's not getting in the way so much so that we, that not being aware of it is causing a big problem until it does. So maybe we have an unrealistic, a blow up, or get an explosion of anger shows up with someone in a relationship where it didn't make sense. It was out of context. It was disproportionate, something like that.
Disproportionate,
or someone who just can't imagine what they're going to do as they're forced into retirement. What are they going to do now? This is their whole identity. And it's like, and someone refers them to me. Whatever the situation is, doesn't matter, because the client's unconscious knows what it's doing. The client's body memory, the emotional memory in the body knows. And so and I'm talking about RIM, regenerating images in memory, created by Dr. Deborah Sandella, who's been on your podcast before, probably will be again, I'm guessing, because she's got some amazing research coming out soon.
Oh, yeah.
But what everything I know about this, I've learned from her. Of course, she's the creator of the technique. And in my researching other modalities, what I found is the things that are effective is that they all bypass this thinking part of our brain that has no idea what the problem is. So you can talk about it forever.
Like what? Yeah.
Well, like deep meditation. Yeah, well, if you're doing deep meditation, right, that you can access parts of the brain that you don't access in talking about stuff. Right. Or holotropic breath work, another way of having a psychedelic type experience without psychedelics. It uses a lot of drugs, but it's drugs that your brain creates when you're doing the breath work, right? So it's internally created. You're not taking anything; you're just breathing, right?
Okay, yeah.
And then ayahuasca or Cambo or bufo or mushrooms. It's like there's something there. Like I think my most RIM-like have been ayahuasca journeys and bufo. That felt most closely related to something lucid enough experiences to feel real. But with RIM, we're not on any there's no medicine in you with RIM. It's totally in control. I do it over the phone with people, and you've done it. So it's like we close our eyes, we do some body sensing, we're leveraging body awareness, and we're inviting in spontaneous imagination, not thinking. We're setting it up so that those things pop in. Right? When people say, if you've ever said, oh, I don't know where this is coming from. This is really strange, but I just thought of my Aunt Lulu, who I haven't thought of in 30 years.
Right.
So those things that pop in and you don't know why, those things happen all the time during a RIM session. So that's spontaneous imagination. It's a third party, wherever that comes from, is bringing something in. And the leveraging of the body awareness dips us down beneath the logical mind. So
I'm just for clarification. I'm just saying. So we're talking about things that are stuck in us from childhood or from even last year. It could happen. I mean, things always get stuck. It's not like they're all childhood things, right? They happen 20, 30, 40, 50. They happen today, maybe, so these things get stuck. They're trauma that get stuck somewhere in our psyche. We're unaware of them, but they're influencing, as you said, so clearly our behaviors, our action, everything that we're doing, and we're completely unaware of it. So you've done all these other modalities like ayahuasca, like holotropic breathwork. Sorry, I'm not familiar with some of them. Bofu, Rufu, I don't know. You said a whole bunch of things, mushrooms, a lot of different techniques that make you aware of this trauma, but it's just like a dream. And you're saying RIM, which is a technique that you have learn from which Dr. Deb created, but which you have been using and teaching for 10 years. That's like another way of doing it. It's another way of getting to that stuck trauma and loosening it, but without all the
it's
illegality and the travel.
Right.
And
I don't recommend psychedelics. I don't recommend breaking the law or risking your life if it's bad for you. There's lots of things. There's lots of baggage with researching psychedelics. You need to go do your research, go somewhere where it's legal and where it's safe and with people you trust and all of that, setting intention, all of that goes into it.
Yeah.
So I'd never promote those things to people. I'm happy to share my experiences.
Right.
Which I'm happy I've done every one that I've done.
That's good to know.
I've had fantastic healing journeys with them, and it's just been a good experience for me. I have witnessed people not having those great experiences. So I think if people feel called and they're otherwise healthy and have the access to it and capacity and all of that, and they feel called, well, then they should go try it. But otherwise, no, then don't. Right? I'm not here to sell anything or promote anything.
Right.
But I am here to sell and promote RIM always, because it's this thing we're on a mission to get out in the world, because it's the most powerful tool I've seen yet. It's the most powerful tool, having taught hundreds of coaches and psychotherapists and PhD psychologists and everyone else how to do this. They have been trained in dozens of other modalities that I'm not trained in. Mm-hmm. And then when they give me the feedback and compare after they learn RIM, and they compare it to all of the other rest of the alphabet soup that they use, they find RIM is their go-to. It's the most powerful trauma healing tool they have. Yeah. And I believe them. So
it's so amazing, because you cannot even know that something is directing all these things in you. I think that's what's so shocking still to people, because with talk therapy, you can't get to those places, can you? You just oftentimes.
Well, what are you talking about? Yeah. You're talking about the trauma, usually about the traumatic event. Talk does not heal trauma. Mm-hmm. That's just fact. That's not my opinion. This is just the scientific fact. The evidence is overwhelming. Bessel drives this home repeatedly, that it just doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's talking about something better for you than not talking about it. Probably for most people who aren't talking about it, they need to talk to someone. Yeah. And are you healing the trauma? No, we're not. Uh-huh. And so there's more. And what is that? Yeah. What is that? And there are and the research is there's brand new research is just about 3 or 4 months old now. There's some psychedelic research showing how this huge increase in efficacy working with psychedelics. So there's big promise in psychedelic assisted therapy, and there's research that shows certain modalities work better with certain types of trauma, like a single event traumatic event that some modalities are better for, that don't really work so well for others for past trauma. And what is the trauma? Mm-hmm. Remember that teacher who humiliated you at the chalkboard when you were 8 in the 3rd grade. Yeah. If the emotion around that has you scared to death to speak in public, or you've never been in front of a classroom, in front of a room of people ever since, you may not even associate that fear of speaking in public to that experience. Yeah. And so someone might be listening and saying, oh no, I never had that kind of experience. It's just an example. Yeah. It might be something else, of feeling you can't accomplish something, or that I've always been this way. You're not that way. It was an event. If it was attached to a powerful emotion, the trauma wasn't the event. No one's going to go to their therapist and say, I had a teacher who snapped at me while I was at the chalkboard when I was in the 3rd grade. However, we don't have, so we wouldn't be talking about it, but that might be the point at which the emotion originally got stuck, that has you identified as a person who can't present in front of a room. Yeah. Whatever the thing is that got stuck, that's the trauma. The trauma is not the event, it's the stuck emotion. So we don't have to compare if it's too small to call it a trauma. If it's a stuck emotion, it's a stuck emotion, and we unstick emotions. That's the business we're in. Let's unstick the stuck emotions that are running the show. Yeah. And an awful lot of it ties to enoughness. It doesn't have to. I'm not married to that. I'm not here to sell enoughness. And, oh, you're not enough. That's your problem. No, it's not. Yeah. It's not the case. Yeah. However, if you don't feel enough, there's a reason why. Because you were born feeling enough. Prebirth, you were enough. Yeah. I stopped saying born. I went with you were created enough. And the reason Do I have time to share the reason why I did that?
Yes, of course. I think it's important
because it came out of an ayahuasca journey where I went to a pre-birth memory. Now we have pre-verbal memories stored in our bodies. We have pre-birth memories stored in our body, and I think everyone knows about the how long before our birth that we are subject to the stress levels and the environment, the chemical and biological and emotional environment our mother is in, while we are in our mother. Right?
Correct.
Makes sense.
Correct.
This is what. No smoking, no drugs, no
pretty
alcohol.
Well accepted.
All that.
Yeah.
Pretty well accepted. So, but our bodies have pre-birth memory, and in this ayahuasca journey, what I tapped into was a pre-birth memory of feeling like an unwanted pregnancy. A thought that had never entered my mind.
Yeah. Why would it?
And in the experience, I got to talk. I had a conversation with my mother, or with her spirit, and with like the divine feminine. We might think of it that way. You might say that all creation, and she's amazing. It's like there's a very feminine energy God type experience, and just kept questioning if it was okay.
If what was okay?
Is this okay? Can I accept this? This gift of life and love is how I give words to it today.
Okay.
But it was like to step into life. It was too much. It was like someone giving you an overwhelming gift that it's too much to receive. Oh, I can't take that. I couldn't possibly. It's too much.
Right.
It had that feel to it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I can't. Is it really okay? And just an infinite number of yeses and yeses and yeses, and coming in every direction, just permeating my body until I finally accepted yes for an answer. And then just fell into this, this blissful journey into the psychedelic, kaleidoscope that one gets into. It just blissed out from there. And, and other things happened and showed up all connected to this, but it was recognizing and feeling deserving of life and love was something that came to me by being able to journey back into that memory. And people do this types of experiences. And this one happened to be in a ayahuasca journey. You can do this in anywhere we're time traveling, anywhere we're going into these old memories or old stuck emotions, whether it's in RIM or something else. RIM, we get to be in control of it. We get to be the client. You get to be in charge, and your thinking mind's along with you.
Yes, which
it's like
is
with
very
ayahuasca,
different,
drink
right?
the cup, and you're in it. It's in you until it's not.
So you're completely out of control when you're on. You can't control your journey when you're on ayahuasca or something like that. But in RIM, you're just sitting there making decisions, kind of. But you also, I can, as I said, I've experienced it, and it is a visual journey.
Yeah. So that's why I'm not. I want to make it clear. I'm not saying that people should go do.
You've made that clear. Yeah.
But that was an experience from there, and it's so similar to what happens in RIM sessions. They're very similar type things when spontaneously things show up.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it's a whole lot easier when I can say this is what's showing up, and it's more like lucid dreaming, but even more control.
Yeah.
So But so now I know. That's why I changed. I say no, we weren't born enough. We were created enough. I was enough before I was born. And I got to feel that I am worthy of life and love. And then in retrospect, I realized that I had nothing but compassion and love for my mother. I was her 13th pregnancy. And she was married to an abusive alcoholic living in poverty.
Yeah.
She had lost 2 children before I was born, which is why I always say I'm the 11th of 12 children, but I'm her 13th pregnancy. And it's like, well, I don't know, and I've had siblings that said, well, first of all, a mother's love, that's not accurate. And there's no way that she didn't want you. And don't talk me out of what I felt. Right. It's just, I remember feeling this. That was what came to me.
And you went back and remembered feeling that in the womb.
Yes.
Not before conception, but in the womb.
Right.
Like that was sort of your, and you think that is your belief that you've been carrying that feeling throughout your entire life? And until you had this journey in ayahuasca, and then you went back and got kind of so you went back, because this is really important. I think you went back and repaired.
Yes.
You re-established yourself as a person who is loved and wanted and joyous. You were given, that was like a gift you were given.
Yes.
Albeit long way into the journey
Yes.
of life.
Well, that's why REM stands for regenerating images
Yeah.
in memory.
Yeah.
The time doesn't exist and the emotion is present. So we go into the emotion that's there, and it's been standing still for 60 years. We can go
Yeah.
into an emotion. We can regenerate the images in the memory that pop up. And the new regenerated experience is just as real to our nervous system as a real event. Now my nervous system is one that has always been loved and always deserved love and life. Where prior to that, it was one who had this memory of or feeling of not being deserving of life and love.
So just to be clear, that happened to you because of ayahuasca, but could you have done that same thing in REM? Have you?
Oh yeah, I have.
Have you done that with people that you've taken through REM to go pre-birth?
Well, yeah, I've done a number of clients where they've done pre-birth. People have had rebirths, where people who have had experiences that happened to them in the womb where they were able to go do that. And it's only half as far as what's possible because, as you know, we talk about intergenerational. So if you think about that, it's like, well, we can also go back to generations of trauma that's been held. Because now we all understood, it's widely accepted that while we're in the womb, we are subject to the environment that our mother is in. Right?
Sure.
Emotional and biological environment, physical environment. Well, we were also once in our grandmothers. Because every egg that a woman ever has is formed in her body prior to her birth. So every egg that might become an offspring one day was also it was just like your heart or your lungs was also inside your mother at one point. So we were all once inside our grandmother.
I see how you were inside your mother, but I don't see how you were inside your grandmother because
I was inside my mother when she was inside her mother. The egg that became me was once inside my grandmother. It was fully formed in her body before she was born, in my mother's body before she was born.
Well, that would indicate that intergenerational trauma is like very, very physical. So whatever. So what your grandmother, of course, this wouldn't happen on the male side of the thing, but then what would your grandmother experience if she experienced trauma? That could be affecting her grandchild.
That would be in my mother's body before she was born.
Right. But, and then your mother would have. Yeah.
But the egg that became me was part of that experience.
So when you think about things like the Holocaust and that, so much suffering for so many years, it's still in the bodies of the grandchildren of the Holocaust victims that are currently involved in another conflict. So it's, very, very, very interesting.
Yeah. Dr. Deb and I have been working hard on really shifting around and upping the game at the RIM Institute and with how we teach and what we teach. And it became very clear and very important to Dr. Deb last year that we raise the bar again on what we teach and how we teach it around generational trauma healing.
Oh, really?
It's
good.
So important. And it shows up everywhere. Everyone's talking about it.
Yeah.
Everyone's talking about it, but not teaching what to do with it.
How would anyone knows what to do with it? Yeah, yeah.
And well, Dr. Deb's been working on that for 20-some years.
Yeah. Wow.
And we haven't named it as such. We haven't taught it as a separate certification. But we've been doing generational trauma healing as an advanced RIM certification tool that we teach. And it comes up in a lot of sessions, and I use it quite frequently.
Interesting.
And it's time to name it.
Yeah.
And we kicked around lots of ideas, and finally she decided we're not going to create a separate certification training for generational trauma healing. We're expanding the RIM certification to include so it's a dual certification. Yeah. So you're also certified in the generational healing. And we added on,
that's very good.
Maybe 40 extra hours of training to really, really focusing on the generational trauma, because we always taught the skills. We're just going to drill down on that and have a lot more classroom time on it and a lot more practice and feedback on those sessions because it's so important. It's so important. And you can go anywhere through spontaneous imagination and body sensing. Just like I've learned you can go anywhere in psychedelics. And now we have the research talking about that will be published any day now. I don't know, any week, any month. There's research out there that has been concluded that's so close to being published that we'll be talking about the psychedelic effects that are happening in the brain without use of any drugs and how that's possible.
I can't express enough how important this is, at least in my opinion, because people like me, I'm terrified. I was always terrified of drugs. I was never a drug person because I too much in control, right? Like, so for me to go do ayahuasca, no way, even though people tried so hard to talk me into it. And every other thing, I'll do very little, I'll do very little, but, none of that, but nothing psychedelic. But RIM, I just want people to understand it is not scary. It is, you could just like, anytime you want to, just open your eyes and say, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to go here. I don't like this. So it's for control freaks like myself. It lets you, what's so exciting to me is to hear all the benefits of psychedelic that people that are undeniable. We quashed some of that research for 40 years because whatever, but it's finally coming in back and getting its due. And everyone, I mean, it's just accepted now as a scientific fact that it's beneficial to mental health and probably to enoughness and every other thing that we're suffering from. But to be able to do that if you don't want to do drugs or doing something scary, it's like ideal. So I just want to really make that clear for anybody who thinks it even sounds a little scary. You don't have to go back to your grandmother's body if you don't want to.
No, you don't have to. It's
not a requirement.
No, because you're in charge of it. You're in charge of all your content, where you go, how far you go, all of that.
Right.
And oftentimes people really enjoy them. I think often there's surprising amount of laughter that happens in RIM sessions. They can be quite joyful. And
really?
Yeah, it's not, it isn't, there's no direction to go digging for, bad shit that we have to go talk about. We're not interested in talking about and stirring up things for the sake of stirring them up.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't want to talk about any of it. Let's just go into it and dissolve the old stuff. So we can, it's not about digging up the old stuff and being in it. It's about preparing, it's not learning. I just saw, I don't know, a Facebook meme or something about this, where it's like, healing isn't about being able to deal with the trauma and the history and the stories and the old heavy emotions and all that, because you already know how to do that. Been doing that for a long time. It's about learning how to really handle joy and abundance and happiness and love. And
I love that.
That's what we're really doing. That's what we're learning how to create.
Yeah.
So let's do more of that. So
perfect note to end on. I will just to reiterate I'm actually going to put a link to I'm going to embed as much as in the way that I can on my website page for you when this podcast comes out, the TED Talk, so people can just go to my page and click on it. Awesome. But obviously it'll be links all over for how to hire you for RIM or other, other therapists, if not yourself. The TED Talk for sure. Maybe some, I think, do you want to invite people to join your Facebook group? Is that
I think the Path to Enoughness group is going to become a thing. That's a thing we're going to keep on thinging.
The Path to Enoughness. So somebody how do they do that? So they go to Facebook. I mean, I'll put a link on here, but just if somebody's listening. In
groups, it's just called The Path to Enoughness is the name of the group.
So you're just on Facebook and you just ask to join the group, basically, right?
It's a public group.
Yeah. And like you said, it'll go back and you can see some of when you're suffering on the El Camino and some of the things that were coming out. And a lot of laugh and so more laughter than suffering, but just to show the process, it was really fascinating to follow along. And I was traveling myself, so it was a little tricky for me to follow, but it was still I was excited every time we could come back and see what was happening. Michael, once again, a total delight to spend time with you. It always is. And I hope people go watch that and join you and learn what it feels like to be enough. That would be nice for everyone.
Yeah,
a lot of joy.
I want that for everybody. Thanks for having me back, Deborah.
Thank you. Take care.